What I did want to cover today, and is something that'll be super helpful as you've got different types of productions coming in here, is within the switcher. Yesterday, sets were talked about, storing a set, what is included in a set, but just the organization of those things, as well as the idea that we have to keep in our minds that data is sacred.
Yep.
Those sets are stored to that thumb drive on the frame here. When there's a good time offloading those files so that they exist somewhere else. USB drives do fail sometimes, so the idea of protecting those is something that I want to keep in mind. We'll start here on the Xpression computer. So if you hit the start button, it's a Win start on our keyboards, or just the Windows button bottom left, and just start typing file, or you might see it in there. Yeah, it's in there. So FileZilla. FileZilla is an FTP client that is installed on these machines. FileZilla is a way for us to use an FTP to jump into that USB drive, as well as some other things on the frame that you're not really going to get too much into. But with FileZilla, it's just a quick, easy way of getting in there and keeping it organized. So this is not a ROS product, but I do know we've got our host, username, password, and port. However, because it's a recent thing, if you hit that little drop-down arrow next to Quick Connect, you've got your history. You can see user at, and there's the IP address of the frame. We're now connected. So the thing to maybe keep written down somewhere is just the IP address of this guy. We've just used it so much recently. I know it's 10.60.3.209. I point at the panel here, but that's the actual frame over there's IP address. And this is information that's available in the manual, so this is not a secret, but the username, all lowercase, user. Password is all lowercase, all one word, password. It is stored in there, especially if you hit that Quick Connect and you go to that user at, that's what that user is telling you, that's the username. So you've already got a connection open, but we are now inside the frame itself, and we can start looking at potentially, this is one way to move media files in. This is a way for us to get in and offline the sets that we have included. So, looking at this folder structure here, we've got a folder called USB. Double click on that, opens that up. Now you can see we've got some stuff happening in here. What we did before in that animations folder, that is where this has been added as a PNG sequence. If you open up that animations folder, it's been dropped in there as a PNG sequence. Feel good about that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Cool. So a way to get back up to the previous folder is all the way at the top. There's that folder with the 3 ellipses. So if you go to the very top of this window here and hit that folder there, and you're back up a folder.
Very cool.
Yep. So if we want to go look at our sets, if you go into the switcher folder, we've got some stuff going on. Yep, sets, ultra. And now we have the 2 sets that have been saved in here. These are both sets that we stored during commissioning. I know that I've been saving things to set 0 here recently. So set 0 can become your go-to set. It can be your default set. It's whatever you want to have happen from it. If I go into the touchscreen here, so within the actual Carbonite dashboard, through the navigation menu into configuration, we have the sets menus. So apologize, but you saw this. You went through some of the stuff yesterday, storing sets.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's something I assume you do on the other switcher.
I don't really work. We don't really work on that switcher.
You don't really work on that one, but now you can, if they don't know too much about it, you can pass it along.
Right.
But there's the 2 menus here. We have save sets and load sets.
Yep.
Under save sets, I can see there are 10 different options available here, and under load, we've got 2.
Nice.
Those 2 match what we've got in there. By going and switching between these 2, we can see these that are lit up orange. That means it has that data within it. So there are memories stored, there are custom controls, installation information like IP addresses, stuff like that, personality such as panel colors, the double tapping auto, stuff like that. Those things have been stored inside the personality, bus mapping as well. But if we look in here on the USB drive, I don't want these to be called set 0 and set 9. I want them to be more aimed at maybe what you're doing. So depending on what sort of shows run out of this room, there's the student news, which might have its own set, and there's the anything else that happens in here. You might have something else going on. So for example, we're going to take set 0. We can of course rename this later as we want to, but simply right click on that guy and you have the option to rename. Let's go ahead and just call this one training, just so we know it's from training. Hit enter. Now you have a set 9 and a training set. If we come in here and we look at our load sets, if I refresh, now we've got set 0 and training.
Very cool.
That's a big thing. It's really nice for places that have uses for multiple sets, because sometimes, and I am guilty of this, we would have a sticky note. Set 0 does this, set 1 does that, so on and so forth. You can keep things organized. I love a good organization from things. If we go into save sets, we should also see it in there as well.
Nice.
We've got that, but take note, before I said there's 10 available sets, there are now 11. There's now this one extra one called training.
So this is
We
a
had,
copy?
yep, so we had set 0. It's recreated that slot for us. If there's nothing stored to that, we've got that still available. So you can go hog wild creating as many sets as you really want in there. Obviously, I don't see too much use for all of that, but having a couple of them and naming them so you know what they are is really nice.
Yeah.
Now, again, you may have noticed this, but just with set 0, I know there's nothing on it because those are not lit up. I do know from there, set 9 has been saved. So if I select this, it shows me orange, which tells me it does have something on it. Feel free, if at any point you guys just want to remove set 9 through the FileZilla client here, you could just right click and delete set 9.
Oh.
When it comes time, if you want to rename this training set, the one that we've been using, you could simply rename it in there, or you have it loaded. You've gone into load sets, training, load all. I'm not going to load it at this moment. I could come back into save sets, pick a new one, save it so that this training lives as its own separate thing.
Sure.
So if you ever needed to revert back to what we have been doing here this week, you have that. But that way you've also kind of have a foundation built up. Any questions? Sets feel good?
No, that feels good.
Cool. And I'll just illustrate. As far as this, we don't have any sequences, which we can go through a little bit today. That's the reason why that's not lit up.
Sure.
But as soon as a sequence is saved.
I can see you guys saving a set. Do you guys have any questions?
So I guess with sets, so is that like basically taking like all the stuff that we've gone over kind of yesterday of like all your presets, things that you make, and then you put that into a set, and then that would be like its own, basically a user profile?
A set is sort of like when you're in Premiere or After Effects, your project.
Yeah.
So it contains all those things. Think of it a little bit like that. It's your overarching thing. You load that up, and now you've got it set up for your broadcast, your production, whatever you guys are doing. Yeah, so it'll include, if we take a look here, we have the option to load. We'll go to the load side. Load from USB. There's all, which will load all of it up. Memories. That'll include all of the memories that have been built. Things like your 2 boxes, split screens, whatever you've got going on, it'll store all that kind of stuff. Customs, all of the custom controls that have been created. So these customs here that run those very specific things, keep those stored because you don't want to rebuild it every single time. Installation, really just important stuff. It's a lot of what we go through in the rest. Oh, I'm already in here. A lot of the configuration menu, so things like IP addresses. Installation is not something you're thinking about constantly. It's just if you needed to move this from one switcher to the other switcher, you could do that. It's just installation. I would be careful with that one if you're moving it to another one. You don't want it unless it's on a totally separate network, then it's going to have its IP address change.
Sure.
And then personality, things like the bus map, things like what we saw in the personality menu. Let's see, the toggle shift, if you remember, the ability to just push and hold, or if you push it once, all that kind of stuff is stored in there. Good news is once you have your set done and ready, I would come in, make sure everybody makes a point when you're done with your production, save your set. That way if the next group comes in, They're going to load theirs because if you've made changes, those won't save. There's no autosave function to this, so just make sure when you're done, just give it a quick save, which is simple as navigation menu, configuration, save sets. Pick yours. I would save all. So we can do that right now. So we've got training selected. If we just wanted to save the memories, we could do something like that, but I generally default to just storing all. Save set. It asks save all changes. I hit yes. It's not a whole lot going on, and it's done. Just protect yourself. I like to preach data is sacred. That way, you know you've got it. Using this, you can copy those folders, though it's currently called training, move it off that USB. Sometimes they go. Sometimes they just don't start functioning anymore. Always safe to make sure you have a backup. We always hear good success stories about places that had backups because there was an issue. So they could just pop that USB in, the new one, load that set, and they're ready to go.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great.
Okay. And this thing, it's easy just to copy a folder out. You can even just click and drag it wherever you need it to go.
So this connects over, wirelessly connects.
Yep. So it's an FTP, which I'm not great at explaining it, but basically it's the ability to just share files.
Perfect. Got
Magically.
it. Okay, great. So changing anything over there, changes. Got it.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
Set as the overall setup.
Yeah.